Françoise LUTALA 4. From the Convent to the Salvation of God. This testimony is the fourth part of a series of 7. My first contact with Indian magic. There is an occult magical organization in India whose name I will not mention, and which at that time had 2 representative offices in Africa. The first office was in Malawi, while the second was located in the city of Lubumbashi itself. One afternoon, when I was coming back from a relative's house, a stranger called to me. He was the representative of the Indian magical organization in Zaire. Alas, who are you to bear the weight of so many? I sat on alert to see if he was speaking to me or another passerby. In myself, I did not fail to wonder about the identity of the one who could see the people of whom I only perceived the voices. I was sure he wanted to talk about these people. In spite of my silence, the man insisted, "Well, you, who do you think you are for?" "For the Queen of England, I'm talking to you. Why are you pretending not to hear me? Do not you know that I have the opportunity to free you from all this load? Be wise, and think a little bit. If I help you, what do you lose and what do I have to gain?" I was so disgusted with life that I did not even have the courage to answer these words, if only out of politeness. Like an automaton, I continued my journey. And think a little. However, pushed by some sort of force, the stranger, far from being discouraged, pursued me. In spite of my lack of interest. "Be wise and reasonable, I still give you my address, in case you change your mind and you want to join me." He verbally gave me his address and got ahead of me. Throughout his speech, I did not even turn around to see what his face looked like. Continuing my journey in silence, I took pity on myself and began to cry. I said to myself, why was I so rude to this stranger? How did he see those who speak to me often? If he could see them, it's because he's not profane. When I got home, I kept asking myself these questions. Was he not right, after all? What did I have to lose, since, in the state where I was, everything was lost? So much to see him again. My decision was made, I had to meet him. The next afternoon, I went to his house. According to the number of vehicles I saw parked at his home, I realized that this man should not be a mere witch doctor, but that he was much more than that. A little reassured, I entered the property. When he saw me, he exclaimed from afar, as if expecting my visit, "At last, here you are. In any case, you have done well to come, you will heal all your diseases. What matters most here is not zeal or faith, but courage. It will take a lot of courage. I will submit you to different tests, only the results will say whether you are fit or not." A little annoyed, because of all my past disappointments, I replied harshly, "It's not worthwhile I do your tests. I'm brave, I know it. A few years ago, I went sometimes alone at night in the cemetery. Other time, always in search of my cure, I spent a night in a marigot full of toads, insects. Where I was, I witnessed the sacrifice of some victims without flinching. There is nothing wrong with my courage. You may be brave, I admit it. However, the orders are that you pass your exams before anything else, and it is better to do it first. The rest will come after. But since it is already late, come back tomorrow afternoon to attend the first sessions with the others." On my way back, we crossed a room full of naked people, lying on the floor. They seemed to follow a course initiation. The next day, when I came back, I was given a ballpoint pen and notebook to take notes. We had to memorize sentences whose meaning I did not understand because they were in an Eastern-sounding foreign language. The teacher used a wand to pace the rhythm of the pronunciation. It is not without reason that I mention this detail. By memorizing these texts, we opened ourselves to the devil and his demons. The devil uses the word not only to spread his mortal message but also to possess the souls. For example, when a magician utters a magic spell, he uses a code that triggers a certain mechanism. In the Rose Croix, we could split and also talk with plants. I discovered now, too, my new master, that the devil could turn a man into an animal, a fly, a boa, a crocodile, a mosquito, etc. The vehicles I saw when I arrived belonged to the customers. One day, after a class, my master told me confidentially, "Dear madam, in this world, there is nothing for nothing. The people who come to us do not do it for free. They have to pay a certain price, either in cash, or in exchange for human life, or even doing certain tasks. For you, do not worry, because your case is a bit special. You do not have to pay anything, because it's me who I have found, not the other way around. There are people who have not paid what they owe us. Those who pay their debts for their freedom, they are transformed into animals, boas, monkeys, in leopards, etc., and they are sold to zoos or circuses. I transform them into animals, and I block the process of returning to their human form by appropriate formulas. The victim remains in good condition. It is tied up, caged, and sold in Uganda, Tanzania, or most often Kenya. The tragedy of these people who remain in an animal form is that they continue to see and hear exactly like men, but without being able to communicate with us. First experiments. The courses came to an end. Then came the time of the experiments. One afternoon we were in one of the rooms, spacious and unfurnished. Everyone went naked, face down. We had to stir our four limbs like a swimmer in the water. We had repeated this same exercise several times when the master entered the room where we were and gave us the order to close our eyes. He severely threatened anyone who disobeyed his orders. He then ordered us to recite some of the phrases we had learned by heart, being careful to pronounce each word well and to suck a breath of air after each sentence. Despite the prohibition of the master, my curiosity pushed me to disobey. I wanted to know what was the purpose of this staging. Lying on the floor, instead of closing both eyes, I closed only one, and observed what was happening by means of my half-opened eye. Under my dumbfounded eye, I saw a metamorphosis happen. My neighbor became a monster half snake, half man. The feet, legs, and part of the trunk had already turned into the tail of a snake, while the chest, arms, and head still retained their human form. At the sight of this scene, I lost courage and I became afraid. I wanted to save myself, run away, and go far away. But I remembered the imprecations of the master and the consequences that would follow. Also, I abstained and focused on the exercise. This took a little time and caused me a slight delay. I was the last to turn into a boa. I felt a total weakening. Opening my eyes to see what was happening to me, I discovered that my whole body had taken the form of a snake. Only my head still had a human form. I had second dizziness and, when I woke, I was entirely a snake, a huge boa. Instead of walking, I crawled. In place of words came from my mouth whistles identical to those of a snake. The whole room was filled with boas. Only the master, standing, had kept his human form. I heard everything, and I saw everything that came into my field of vision. However, I could not express myself. Half an hour later, I felt dizzy. When I regained consciousness, I found myself in my body, with my diseases. I was happy to see that, in the form of a boa, I did not have any deformities. which made me think that I was cured and had no deformities. What was my disappointment when, resuming my human form, I observed with bitterness that no cure had occurred. 3 weeks later, I was able to metamorphose into boa, bee, mosquito, crocodile, leopard, etc. without the help of the master. It amused me a lot. I could forget my misfortunes. When I took the form of a bee, for example, I could come home, see and hear everything that was going on but could not intervene. The other side of the coin was that when a person is in the form of an animal or an insect, if that animal or insect is killed, the person must necessarily die, not on the spot, but once returned to his home. John often reproached me for my unjustified absences in the afternoons. He wanted me to explain to him, but it was impossible for me to give him any. The master had formally forbidden us to reveal our secret, even to our spouse. But John became more and more suspicious. One day he followed me without me noticing. I did not see it until the last moment, and I had no way of turning around or dodging it. So I went to my master's house and explained that my husband was on my heels. In record time, I turned into a boa. The master had only time to hide my clothes in a drawer, and John burst into the room. "Where is my wife?" he asked. "What woman are you talking about, dear sir?" retorted the master. "I'm talking about my wife, the one who has just come into this room. I've been following her from home. She could not go anywhere. I saw her come here, into this room. But look at the room we are in. There is only one. Where you came from? If your wife has come here, as you boldly pretend to say, find her. If not, apologize and clear the floor, because you're violating my home." I was there, but John did not know. Wound on myself in a corner, I followed their dialogue. In the end, John exclaimed, discouraged, "It's not possible, my God, it's not possible, I'm dreaming or what?" I followed Francoise from home to this room. "So, my dear wife, I see only one boa and you here. But where has my wife gone? Are you sick, or what? Are you dealing with a madman? I'm telling you to go away, or I'll complain." John was not of a complicated temperament. He excused himself and went away. I had a twinge of heart when I saw the confusion of my husband. After his departure, I took the human form and followed him home. I found him gloomy, melancholy. He did not ask me any questions, but his way of looking at me said a lot. Did he have suspicions, or did he simply understand that his dear Francoise was none other than this boa in the corner of the room? For fear of losing my husband, I decided to give up Indian magic. What would become of me if I happened to lose him? What would my life look like? Once my decision was made, I went to find the master and said, "Dear Master, I have been here for several months now, without any change to my current state. Since he has followed me here, my husband no longer speaks to me as before. I suffer a lot. Sometimes he looks at me in a funny way. Tell me, Master, what I have to do, so that I can do it." He looked at me for a moment, before asking me, who could worry the most, in case of a prolonged absence of a partner. "It depends on the length of my absence. 3 days at most. It's as to my husband that I will have the most accountability." "Where are you going to take me? Do you intend to sell me in Kenya?" "No. Do not be stupid at this point. And then, you forget, I think, our instructions. Do not let your questions hide your fear. Yet you know very well that courage is recommended, remember. Bring me the leftovers of your husband's food, as well as some dust from his right heel. It is too Neutralize him for 2 or 3 days. The next day I brought him what he had demanded, and he introduced what I had brought him in. A 3/4 bottle filled with a substance. He said 3 times the name of my husband, then he waved the bottle sharply, so no one will be able to worry you for 2 or 3 days. Chapter 7, The Satanic Underwater World. The master dispatched the affairs in progress and entrusted the direction of his house to one of his deputies. Shortly after, we went to the forest, far from any habitation. After walking for several miles, we were exhausted. There was in the area a nganda kind of camping where the hunters can rest. After undressing me, the master made me put on raffia and tree leaves and we stayed there for 2 days without taking any food. There was a lime-based painting, of different colors, in the manner of the priestesses spiritualists, consulted for divination, and who perform their rite by invoking satanic spirits. A little weakened, we dragged ourselves to the river that flowed in the area. There was a canoe floating on the water and held at the bank by a rope. He untied the rope and we made room for it. We followed the current of water and reached a place where the current was very strong, and the water very deep. To my astonishment, the master stopped the boat at this precise spot and invited me to dive. This is the moment when you have to show your courage, throw yourself in the water. Sorry. I tell you to throw yourself into the water. Although fasting and weak, I still had enough lucidity to detect the danger. Go to the water first, and then I will go. We have been together so far, how can you imagine that you'll get rid of me so easily? Truce chatter. We have reached a point of no return. The time is not for vain discussions. Dive. I order you. Time passes, and you are expected. But it's suicide. I do not know how to swim. If you want me to dive, move the boat to a place where the water is shallower and less agitated than here. Without that, I will never dive. Or plunge first, and I follow you. You do not know what you're talking about, little girl. At the point where we are, it is practically impossible for us to back down. If I accept your proposal, it would be for me to sign our death warrant. We are expected. You may not know it, but you're ruining all your chances of healing. My healing is in the water? No, I do not want to. Seeing myself unable to convince myself, the master resorted to a trick. He stared at a point behind me and remained calm, as if he wanted to draw my attention to something. I was distrustful enough to observe what was happening. Taking advantage of these few seconds, the master rushed me into the river. The contact of the water on my body shocked me, but, apart from that, I felt nothing. I was surprised to find that my body was not wet and that I could breathe completely freely. In the devil's lair, the fear of death by drowning gave way to great astonishment. The only odd sensation I felt was like what you feel in an airplane going through an area of air holes. It lasted some time. My eyes were wide open, but I was in complete darkness. Then I lost consciousness. When I returned to myself, it seemed to me that I was feeling as if I was being resuscitated. When I had recovered all my senses, I was moved from where I was, and I found myself in a very clean room, where it was broad daylight. The population of this place was largely women. I was accompanied by one of them, who was my guide, and who explained to me that these women were, in fact, the ones men call sirens. They only put their tail when they want to go out. This tail is identical to the tail of a big fish. Emboldened by the courtesy of my guide, I asked him, "Are there no men here?" Yes, we have our husbands, but they are not like yours. Here, every man has about 20 women at least. This is not polygamy, because here it is not the man who chooses his wife, but rather the woman. My guide showed me the husbands in question. They were giants, colossi, each of which could reach a height of 7 to 12 meters. One of them approached me and examined me as an anthropologist examines a subject to study. And when we arrived at the superiors, who were waiting for us, I was offered a place, and my guide withdrew. The one who seemed to be the most senior addressed me these words: "The great chief feels for you a great affection. He started to show interest in you since the time when you signed your first pact with him, accepting the meal of your grandmother. Since then, he has followed you everywhere. It was he who sent for you. Finally, here you are among us, and in a few moments, you will be able to have a face-to-face meeting with him. Tell yourself that you are privileged. It will be enough for you to do a tiny thing of nothing at all to see it. It is enough that you express your desire to meet him, by signing a new pact, but voluntarily this time. In this way, we will see that you will not be able to harm us anymore or to keep us company in the future. The pact is this: you will have to share a meal with us. By this means, you will agree to give us your father. Only then will you be able to see the prince. He follows you everywhere. What is my father doing in all this? I will never kill anyone. If I came here, it's for reasons you know well. But it is only a sign of submission to the prince, a sign of obedience and fidelity. The blood of your father will testify against you the day you would like to keep us company. Do you know that a pact concluded by blood is more valuable in the eyes of the great prince, and if you give the blood of your father, what a sign of devotion, attachment, and love for the master. We chose your father because we thought that it is him who is best suited, between your husband, your 4 children, your mother or your father. If you do not agree, you still have time to indicate to us, on this list, who you want to sacrifice. But the more the sacrificed person is dear to you, the greater the value of the pact. No. Think, little girl. Do not take into account what you believe or your current state. You will have a beauty much greater than that which you had in your youth. You will become very beautiful and very rich. Let's talk about the wealth that awaits you. You'll have a whole chain of shops and jewelry. My life does not count. Put yourself a little in my place. What would I lose if I died now? But, dear lady, the great prince wants you only good. His wish is that you are happy. He has noticed your courage and wants to make you a great queen of Black Africa. You are the only one to have earned her admiration. Show yourself worthy of such esteem on the part of our great prince. Make a small gesture, and everything will change positively for you. In such a seductive language, I was about to forget the atrocious nature of the act that was asked of me, as well as its consequences. I did not discover anything that would allow me to condemn my father. What services should I still render, to deserve so much praise? Nothing, absolutely nothing. On the other hand, you will receive great wealth. Did not I tell you at first? You will truly become a queen envied by all. The great prince has sworn to make you a name in African jewelry. It is by means of this great jewelry business that you will serve it and that you will allow it to obtain continuously human blood and souls. How many times will it be necessary for you to say that I hate blood? I cannot kill me, because I will not kill any of the people on your list. Do not get angry. Who told you to kill? You will not kill anyone, only accept to eat with us, accept that these jewels work in your name, and that's all. They will come and buy your jewels very dearly in your stores. Our quality, our products are the best. Most of your customers will become our victims. Indeed, these jewels, thanks to countless complicated incantations, contain inferior spirits condemned to serve us. When a customer will buy a jewel, it is actually a spirit that he will buy. Once in their house, this spirit will be able to extract the blood of the occupants of the house, especially that of little children during the night. It can also disrupt the balance of the home by sowing disagreement between the spouses, without ever being worried. Everyone knows that a home where there is disagreement is a breeding ground for our exploits. This spirit can also steal money, and sow mistrust between spouses. I cannot give you my approval right away. Give me a moment of reflection. Continued in Part 5.